The PPF industry tends to have two different types of installation, the kit or standard installation and the custom or bulk installation. Today we're going to be walking through the differences between the two, figuring out which one is going to be right for you. We're going to be going through the methods, the results, and the limitations of both. So let's get into it. So to demonstrate this, we're going to be using some black paint protection film on the white Model Y. Reason being is because it's going to show up a lot easier on camera so that you can see the actual lines of the paint protection film, where it's going to end up, and give you a better representation from your couch at home. For all of our paint protection film installations, whether it be the kit or the custom install, we do our wash clay chemical paint decontamination process. This strips the paint of any sort of oils and contaminants. That way we can get a better bond from the PPF to the panel. We also do a polish over the areas that are receiving PPF so that we can ensure that it has a better surface to adhere to. That being said, well, let's go into the method of the kit installation. The kit is going to be a computer cut pattern. This is going to be machine cut from our plotter behind me. It's going to cut out the pattern of each individual panel. This, for the example purposes, is the partial front end on the fender, but this is going to be able to show you where the PPF actually comes up and is tucked around these edges and corners. So it's going to be able to give you a better representation of what it's actually going to be like if it were to be a clear film. This is going to be limited to the panel gap tolerance on the actual car. That panel gap alignment is very apparent on this Model Y. As you can see, the headlight is actually misaligned. The gap between the fender and the headlight is rather significant, and you can actually see that this squeegee is able to fit in that gap and go in pretty deep because it has about a centimeter of room. However, on the underside of the headlight and on the fender side, the squeegee cannot even go in a little bit because it is completely touching and doesn't have any room. This, if we did not do any sort of disassembly, would warrant a kit install because that panel gap would cause chafing of the film and it would ruin the film as time went on and you continue to drive. What we like to do, being that we have the ability to remove the bumper and the headlights, is fix that alignment issue. While you're paying for the custom install, you're also getting these slight fixes so that you don't have to spend the time for Tesla to take care of this type of issue. Alrighty, now that we have the bumper removed, we can actually see in depth as to why this fender was misaligned. The fender was supposed to be in line with the alignment peg, but it actually wasn't. So we'll be able to go ahead and realign this, fix that alignment, and get it to where the headlight sits flush within the headlight and fender housing. Alrighty, now that we have the kit and the custom PPF installed, we can go through the main differences. So for the kit installation, we obviously have some exposed edges and corners. That is because we're using a machine cut pattern. That pattern will then be able to be applied and leave it as it is. We do not do any sort of disassembly for the kit installation. Obviously it is a little bit different here, being that we did the custom on the other end, but typically we would not do any sort of disassembly for this. That is so that it can ride along all the edges and leave it to where it does not have any disassembly required. This is a much easier installation, but as you can see, it is not as clean. It will have exposed edges and corners, some of which will be wrapped, like the one leading into the hood, but with all of the edges and corners, this will be slightly exposed. For darker colors, you can get away with this because the paint protection film line is not as visible. Also with white, we always recommend going with custom because the edge of the paint protection film still has a little bit of adhesive left over. That being said, dirt and debris can begin to accumulate and you'll have a line along all of the edges and corners where dirt and debris has started. You have to be a little bit more tedious in terms of the maintenance to actually clean that out, and it is a little bit more time consuming. On darker colors, you can kind of get away with it because obviously it's not going to be nearly as visible. The kit install is for those that are not going to be nearly as worried about those exposed edges and corners and simply want to protect the vehicle. That being said, if you are going to be more concerned about those edges and corners and you want that full coverage, we would be going over to our custom install. Our custom install, obviously you can see, is not going to be showing any of the white. All of the edges are going to be able to be wrapped and capped underneath all of the panel gaps. It's a lot more time consuming, it's a lot more effort. It is being completely hand trimmed so that we can get it underneath all of those edges and corners, get it to where it's as seamless as possible. There are still limitations with this install, being that there's a lot of tension involved. However, for the majority of panels, especially on the Tesla, you don't have to worry about any sort of seams or edges being shown. For matte or color change installations, for example, on the BMW M3 that we're currently doing, this is always going to be a custom installation, because if you put a piece of matte paint protection film and have the exposed edge, you're obviously going to see the gloss edge. That's obviously not what you're looking for. You want it to be one fluid, seamless installation. So obviously, with all of that being said, the differences between the kit and custom simply boil down to the aesthetic, the time and effort involved in the installation, and the maintenance. The main difference is obviously going to be the exposed edges and corners, so if that is going to be something that is bothersome, definitely go with our custom. Our custom is definitely what we're known for and what we do day in and day out. Considering we do so many of these, we prefer to do the full disassembly so that we can get the better looking installation. But obviously everyone is working within their own budgets and their own personal concerns. So whichever one is right for you, let's talk about it and we'll get you scheduled. Alrighty, so that wraps up the kit versus custom installation guide. So if you guys have any other questions, feel free to reach out. Obviously we did this with black, so if you want to see it with the clear paint protection film, definitely stop by the shop. We'll be able to give you a demonstration live on your car, whatever it may be. If you have any questions, leave a comment below, reach out to us on Instagram, Facebook, happy to help, and definitely want to look out for the next videos talking about how to properly maintain it and some of the other questions that we commonly get asked. As always, have a good day. We'll see you next one.